much pride, I call this meeting of the City of Halstead's Council to order. Are there any agenda changes?
None from staff this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Doesn't appear like our public forum showed up today. Consent agenda then?
Mr. Mayor, after enjoying myself reading through this consent agenda, I would make a motion to approve it as submitted.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
That is approved. We will drop on down to new business. KDOT Innovative Tech Grant Agreement.
Thank you. So this is the agreement with the Kansas Department of Transportation for our innovative technology project, which is to do an updated street inventory and actually build out a GIS system for our streets and our stormwater. And the streets will include our street signage as well. And then we will hope to piggyback with the tech that is being bought under this grant and actually expand this to include our other 3 utilities of gas, water, and wastewater, although that's beyond the scope of the KDOT grant that we had to keep restricted to streets, the street signs, and then the stormwater system because that's part of streets. So we need to approve this grant if we want to move forward with this. And I don't know, Brad, if you want to.
What I handed out, I'm trying a slightly different approach because many times what I go through sometimes escapes everyone. I went ahead and did a summary on this one and hope that that is of some value when we do these periodically. This one I don't have a great deal of commentary on because quite frankly, every time I try to change one of these with them, they say no. And basically with a grant like this and the fact that it is fairly generous from our perspective in terms of benefit, it's a little difficult to start digging your heels in too much. But just for reference sake, a few things that we have to do. Obviously, I listed the funding structure, but the audit and record keeping is always fairly important, and Ethan's good with that, so is Julie, in terms of we have to keep those records for 5 years. I've had several cities that, oh, we do? And got rid of them after 2 or something, and that's not necessarily a good thing because they will oftentimes be subject to a potential audit later on. And I don't mean an IRS audit, I mean that the state comes in to check and see if we're in full compliance well after the project has been complete. So I stress that we have to deal with that. Plus the other one, and I don't see that happening either, but it's in each one of these, and it's fairly important to note that if the city cancels a project, then we have to pay back any and all costs already incurred. So once we start, it's probably something we want to be fairly committed to in this instance. And again, we don't have a lot of reasons not to do this. Anytime you're getting this kind of funding, you want to be fairly grateful for it, I think. So it's about the only commentary I would have on that. Oh, and that's, I take that back. One other one. All state and federal laws in terms of procurement rules. That has at times come in to be an issue where they've got certain fair dealing requirements and certain things that they do in terms of who we advertise with, what we take bids on, where from. This one doesn't really mandate some of the things that we've had in the past where specific types of vendors and contractors are identified and you have to pick from those lists, and that usually turns out to be a nightmare. I don't mean that in a completely bad and inflammatory way, but boy, we've had several that didn't work out well, and but you were stuck because they were on the list, and that's who you had to pick, and they were the low bidder. But that is something to always be.
Brad, you say we, the city of Halstead?
No,
For
different
people
city,
for which you work, okay.
Yeah. After this many years of doing it, I've had different instances where it's come up, and that's the only other place that I normally point out that we have to follow their procurement rules. But the way that's set up for this, I don't have a great concern. I just wanted you to be aware of it.
Ethan, you touched on adding, they're going to develop this platform with streets and signage. So we're gonna develop this platform, but then you talked about adding on to it with our sewer and what else was it?
Gas and water.
Gas and water.
Yeah.
Now, those 3 items, are those something that our staff will implement and put onto this platform, or will we have to pay for those services to be added to the platform?
We would probably look at doing a project with PEC.
Okay, yeah,
that as
and that
well.
would be the thing to do.
Yeah.
This is their program, this is their software.
Yeah, they're much, I mean, we don't have a GIS expert on staff.
Yeah.
So laying out the maps, and that's one of the big things is we don't have outside of the counties GIS mapping. I mean, we still use paper utility maps, which, should have been updated many years ago.
This would be wonderful to have that with that platform and then adding these others to it. Yeah, great.
So would they be going and looking at just old maps, or are they actually going out to physically check things?
No, we would actually be going, I mean, the paper maps would inform, but yeah, it would be like working with staff to actually go get GPS locations on, every valve. When we went into that, here, same thing, like for stormwater boxes, they'll get, the GPS coordinates of a stormwater box. We should be able to fill out the details of, how wide is the inlet? Is it concrete, brick, the construction material? And it hopefully will allow us, with that inventory, to just perform better asset management in the long term. And then, yeah, while the streets, they'll actually, drive those with a camera on a vehicle that'll actually take, snapshots and say there's alligator cracking, or this is areas, and it will rate them, I don't believe, it's either the Pacer scale or a scale that's very similar that, ranks a road from like 1 to 10. And then again, part of this is working with them to say, okay, how do we transfer this into, a street management program that actually looks at, sometimes you have money that's better well spent taking care of a road that's only slightly deteriorated, as opposed to throwing that same money into a road that really should just be replaced. And while I know that isn't maybe necessarily great for a resident to hear if the road in front of them is that deteriorated, sometimes it's a better use of our funds, though, to preserve the road that's okay, as opposed to the road, trying to do an okay treatment on a road that just needs replaced. So,
Do these people, does this GIS system tie into any way locator services? Because I know there's a place in Wichita you go to, and I've been there a couple of times, when we put the fiber optics between here and Bentley, crud, they had everything you can imagine in a county, but not so much in the city, until we put the fiber in the ground. Then you get a printout that you couldn't lay on all of these desks combined, because it's every 1,500 feet, they showed what's there. And I mean, they showed everything that's there. I didn't know if it tied into, if that's a Kansas deal, or is that a,
say, to my knowledge, there's nothing that would directly, interface with 811, but I can definitely ask that question. I mean, as we move more forward in the project.
yeah,
The big advantage for us is we will actually have a dashboard, that we will be able to call or print maps. Because, yeah, right now, when we look at aerials, we're getting that from the county's GIS system. And then it's, taking a paper map, trying to overlay, and Pat and, his guys doing the best they can to be like, yeah, this is about where a water line would run on your property. So,
yeah.
Pretty close.
yeah, I was to say, it works.
Now, on the 811 thing, it will help us because we'll have once we get the water, sewer, and gas moved into this, it will help us there. And I believe we can share that information with 811. But whether we want to or not is another security question we have to come up with and answer. Do we want our utilities out there?
Yeah.
Well, that,
But
do you
that's
want,
a question for down the road.
do you want communications
Gotta
cables
get it into the system first.
on your system too? That, to me, that would be a bigger concern. Let's,
Because if they don't locate it, we just dig it up.
I didn't hear that, Pat.
No, I understand what you're saying, and, I've been here long enough, I know where a lot of that is. So
Yeah.
I know to look for it, and I've told the locators, like, on the on the fiber optic stuff up on Halstead Road a couple times, I said, aren't you supposed to locate this line? What line? I said, this line that's running right here. They go into their mapping and go, oh, yeah, okay. So, I mean,
Because I
so it
know,
would be nice if we could see it on our side too, but it's another way. I don't know how that would pull in, it'd be
yeah, I remember
a
the
question we'd have to answer.
firsthand how the Kissawah Bridge thing went, so they didn't locate and cost them $5,000 to reconnect the fiber. Thank you, Harvey County.
I see that this is a joint project with the city of Sedgwick. Is there any, like, if they decide not to move forward, I mean, is there,
No, that's
are
a,
you concerned?
that's a good question. That's one of the things that actually took us so long to get the agreement, because we're almost, like a year from when we were awarded, was they weren't sure how to structure it, so now they will have their own independent agreement with KDOT and we have ours. And so, yeah, I mean, we'll only be responsible basically for what Halstead put in that grant application, and Sedgwick's only responsible for what they put in. And so there's no cross.
Well, we're not tied to them, and if they have issues,
Yep. And yeah, it makes it better for, yeah, otherwise we would have had to do an MOU like we've done on other joint, where one of the cities, would pick up the costs up front and then the other city reimburses. And yeah, KDOT decided they wanted to handle it independently, so we are okay with that.
yeah, good, good.
Well, with that, Mr. Mayor, if there's no more questions or discussion, I would make a motion to approve the KDOT Innovative Technology Grant contract between KDOT and the city of Halstead, and authorize staff's signatures to execute the documents as required.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That carries.
Secondly, Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion to approve the master service agreement between PEC and the city of Halstead, and authorize staff signatures to execute the documents as required.
Second.
All those in favor?
Before you
Aye.
vote on that one,
That was close.
secondarily there, a couple of things that, we've negotiated our way through, and some changes were made, some were not. And that's why I did this in writing again, because I still want you to be aware. One, Ethan and I have discussed repeatedly, unless you find something there that I missed, because I was just looking at it again. PEC has a tendency, and they have done this in other settings, to indicate that everything that they produce is proprietary, meaning they own it. We pay for it, but they own it. And they do that as a sweeping statement generally, and I don't care for it. And I'll be candid, I mean, it's not something that can preclude you if you so choose, as long as you understand what it is you're doing. But in these kinds of instances, because it's an ongoing process with them, in terms of these are, self-renewing on a 5-year basis, that can come up in some instances where it just feels uncomfortable to me that the city picks up the tab but doesn't own. They do say you can use it during the term of this project, but then we own it. And those projects many times are specific in nature, and I just have some disquiet with that. But that wasn't something that I found that they changed when I had noted that one. But Keithan, if you see something I missed there, then let me know.
No, and we might, I guess, Brad can say how to amend the motion. They
Yeah.
did send out something with the change, but I don't.
It still was.
The
I thought
sections
that-
they had listed, I don't know that was what got put in your packet. So they did make certain changes, like in the indemnity that you
Right.
did ask, or they agreed to it, so.
And that's
however
why
we
I
did
assumed
figure it
everything
out.
had been agreed to, and then when I looked at it, I was like, oh, shoot. There's a few things that have not been changed, and so that was one. The other one, the cap on their liability, at least is the one I read. And that's not unusual at all. A lot of the engineering firms will say, up to the amount that you've paid us. Or they've gone ahead and done the other one that's often offered when I object, which is, okay, twice what you paid us is our liability. I've been through that litigation. You win the battle, lose the war. You get into a situation where some element of negligence or just misdesign or something occurs. I've got one going right now where the damages exceed, their total fee in that particular instance was under $300,000. The damages are well over $1 million and climbing. So even if you get them liable for everything, you're still eating a significant portion of it. What I have found, because I fight with every engineering firm over this, and I know they get exasperated too, is that a number of them are willing to say, we will go ahead and not limit it to that. We'll limit it to whatever our current insurance coverage cap is. That deals with their general liability carrier as well, who doesn't want unlimited liability. I get that. And most of them, because we require that they produce insurance, are either at $1 million or $2 million per occurrence. That usually makes me more comfortable, because then if you've got an instance where there's a problem, we have the ability to argue that. I also always argue with them, but they never are willing to give in on that consequentials, because that just opens the door. Anything is a direct consequence as far as we're concerned, you're liable for, of what you did wrong. They don't ever want to agree to that, and I have tended to acquiesce on that, because I've talked with several of the carriers that insure these engineering firms, and they're like, we will never insure them if you don't give some limit on consequentials, because that could be anything. The snail darters that get killed downstream because of something that was done with regard to the sewage treatment plant that someone designed, and in no way could they determine that what they were doing in terms of the filtration system was going to have this problem. Now you're dealing with all kinds of massive claims, and they want some limitation on their liability. By the same token, it's ours if it isn't theirs. So try to meet them in the middle on that one, but I do want to point out that they've still got that in there, and also indirect damages. Indirect generally are going to be things like lost use. If we have something we have to, like, again, if I use the sewage treatment plant as an example, if you have to shut it down for a period of time, that's a problem for us, and it incurs damages. They don't wish to be liable for those either. So,
We don't have to go to Jim's house.
right. Basically, because he's on the council in a giving,
No, he has a lagoon.
he just opens the door.
Septic tank.
Um,
He knew what I meant.
And then the last one, and I will amend it for that reason. They still have in there that any litigation would be done in Sedgwick County. No.
Well, I read that, but
The contract is here, it's with us, and the services are delivered here. It's a Harvey County case. And I'm not so sure that one was just not something that was overlooked. Because usually I don't have an argument over, if you're gonna have a client that you serve in their county, usually the litigation's going to be there,
and where are they headquartered?
Sedgwick County.
Okay.
So do we want to wait on this vote until you revise this?
Not necessarily. You can go ahead and do it if you'd like, subject to staff review, which is what I think Ethan was alluding to. And I contact them and say, we're doing this. You can do it either way. You can hold if you want, or you can pass it subject to that. I don't anticipate several of these being something that they're gonna argue about, like that Sedgwick County thing. They may still wanna fight with me some on the language that most of the others have agreed to. I just did one last week in another city of this size where we agreed finally, after 3 or 4 weeks of arguing, that they agreed to cap their liability in any way, shape, or form to the total of their insurance coverage. Their carrier was happy with that, and said, they're paying for that much coverage, so we're okay with that, and they were too. And I'm usually a lot more satisfied with that, because it's almost always, well, it is always, I don't know of any that aren't at least $1 million. And most of them have gone up to 2, sometimes 3. So and right now, this is kind of a blanket agreement, if you understand that. We don't even know what project necessarily, we're not compelled to use them, but if we did, we're stuck with what's been agreed to in here.
That was gonna be my question. Is PEC the only game in town, or are they the best, or?
They'll tell you they're the best.
It's the same. For this project, they've done several similar projects as far as the GIS inventory. Pretty solid. I mean, helped us put together the grant application in terms of the tech needed and.
We wanna stick with them.
Yeah.
We just need to get,
Yeah,
Yeah.
they've got good
And so,
people, I'm
like-
not saying that.
Say-
And what I do want to say this, what Brad was saying about the terms and conditions of their contracts is very common. It's not like they're being shady or underhanded.
No, not at all.
It's just the character of that animal. And basically, he's gonna massage it to fit us better here.
And many times people just go, okay. I tend to argue with them, different firms on this, and they always roll their eyes like, oh, God.
Yeah.
But I've been through it a couple of times where we were actually in a courtroom, and so you get scarred for life about that experience if it isn't exactly what you're looking for.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, so when we get to projects, just so you guys know, this kind of, so that's a base agreement, if you will, and then
We would have
we
to
will actually
alter.
have another, scope of service that is, basically comes an amendment to this. So we would execute a work order, as they call it, for the project specifically. So we'll do a work order for the street GIS. And then when we're ready for the utility, that would be a separate work order for that project. And then if we wanted to use them for some other engineering need, that would become a work order.
build them onto the platform and such.
Yeah, it just, this kind of goes back and just establishes the foundation of our
Yeah,
relationship.
it's a skeletal structure.
I'll rephrase that motion then. Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion to approve the master service agreement between PEC and the city of Halstead, authorize staff signatures and to execute the documents as required, all along with review by staff and council.
You have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carries.
Thanks, Brad.
You bet.
That's helpful.
That's good stuff, thanks.
Vacancies on city boards.
Well, we have come to where we actually have some vacancies on city boards, and, the question always comes from residents, how the city handles that. We've had it handled multiple ways, and I guess I just wanted to put it out there as a discussion. All our appointees are mayoral appointments, but they're all subject to the approval of the governing body, or at least a majority thereof. And so, again, in my time with the city, we've advertised and taken applications when we've had vacancies come, which then, the mayor would review those, make it their selection, present it to the council. We've had direct approach where, just somebody knew somebody was interested and, went and asked if they would be willing to serve, and then that became the appointment. And I guess I was just looking of whether we want to try and adopt a more formal policy, if you will, to say this is how we want to do, or if someone is interested when they approach staff, we can say, this is what you need to do if you want to be considered for a board appointment. I know some places, like Harvey County, they do applications all the time. And kind of related to this is we historically have always, unless there's been, some issue, which I can't think of any real major issue, if someone's on a board, we essentially, if they would like to be reappointed, they get to keep that appointment as long as there was no issue. And it's that question too of, just so we know to tell a board member of like, if the expectation is they need to reapply, if they want to continue serving. And then whether we as a city want to look at any of the boards and commissions of actually allowing, a max number, of time served on a board. Because right now, that's only going to be governed by the internal bylaws of those various boards and commissions. So, and I'm not sure offhand, if the housing authority or the library board, for instance, has term limits, but I know some cities have them and some don't, because it is hard to find volunteers, and if you get a good one, and they're willing to do the work, keep them on. So it's just kind of a general discussion with you all of how you would like us to go, because we do currently have a confirmed vacancy on planning and zoning. So,
I know that the library board does have a term limit, but there have been several that have dropped off, and then 4 years or however many years later, they'll go back on. So that's the impression I got from the last meeting I attended, so.
Have there been negative issues with the terms by which people are being appointed at this point, or could we?
no, it's just, it's one of those, I guess, if we default into reappointments, you can just, like a planning commission term is 3 years, so in theory, somebody could, serve for 25 years on the planning
No,
commission.
I think it'd be good to advertise them, put it out there, because there's citizens out there that are willing to serve the community, so I think it's good to have a fresh mind in there.
I think, and I'm with George a little bit on this, that I know that the mayor can appoint them and bring up the deal, but I would like to have, I know in the past, like myself, for instance, if you don't know me when I come on here, you know, you might wanna have a meeting in between just to say, hey, or check out stuff or whatever, just for a frame of reference. I mean, one meeting's not that big a deal to at least have a heads up before we walk in and we vote on somebody. We don't even know necessarily who we're getting. I mean.
Ethan, do you
for a
have
frame of reference.
a recruiting format you'd like to follow, or what?
Yeah, I mean, it's just really,
We walk the street and, hey,
yeah, well, it's just if we formalize it too, I mean, then I would feel that we would need to like meet with the library board and say like, this is what, you know, because the city is the appointing authority, because we've kind of taken a hands off and let them kind of fill their own vacancies to a certain degree, or they make their recommendation, and I think it's still fine if they have a recommendation. But they are city boards technically still, and you guys do oversee that process, and so if we were gonna make a formal change, you know, just saying like, hey, this is our volunteer application, we would just request, you know, if you have people that are interested, great, just have them fill this out. So again, the mayor knows who he's appointing, and you guys know who you're voting on.
Okay, so it's.
If you wanna do an
Yeah,
application,
I
I mean,
think
we
that would
filled
be
it
great.
with just word of mouth.
No, no, I
So-
think that would be great. You have a paper trail, you have background and all that? No.
Can you put a
I'd
form
say
on the
let's
website?
supplement.
It's,
Yeah.
there's been a form on the website for a
forever.
very long time. Yeah, it's just a simple volunteer application that we have on there.
I could bring it up with the
You're welcome,
library
Charlie.
board also. I'm going to their next meeting, which is Monday, I think.
It mostly came around because, you know, when a resident asked me, and I was like, well, my best thing to tell you right now is, you know, reach out to the mayor because he's the appointee and, you know, or the appointer, and talk to him. And you know, it's again, if we have a process we can point to of saying like, no, hey, when, like now with planning commission, that we can actually advertise and say, there is a vacancy on planning commission. Anyone who's interested now, come apply. And same with, yeah, library boards or that, I feel, sometimes people don't even know that, you know, the housing authority has a board that you could serve on. So,
You're just kind of looking for a consensus, not.
yeah,
really
just
anything.
what you guys would like us to do, and that way, I guess, yeah, everyone's comfortable with the process and doesn't feel like, hey, a name just came, I mean, again, in the consent agenda, everyone you guys did this evening were all reappointments, basically,
Yeah.
so.
But, and that was one thing I was almost wondering about was with reappointments, since I'm new to the board and we've got a new mayor, and mainly because there's a new mayor, it makes me wonder, maybe not necessarily, refill it out, but just,
Come introduce
yeah,
themselves to you.
just say hi, like, just so at least the mayor
know who it
knows who
is.
they are, since, he's new.
Is this gonna increase a burden on your task or Julie's?
No, I mean, we pretty much already have the volunteer app. We'll probably tweak it a little bit, just make sure we're pushing it out when we have the vacancies.
Yeah, no, it will not be a big deal at all.
You know what you need there?
I think so.
Okay.
Ethan, did you want to ask about maybe a deadline type for accepting applications?
Oh, yeah, and I guess that would be, thank you, Julie. That's a good point. Yeah, so that's probably been the downfall of when we do have the application, is it's just kind of like fill out whenever, and I guess having it more structured of saying like for planning commission, that's an April appointee. You know, the person whose term was up said, I'm no longer interested in serving, so it's, yeah, like if we can establish, you know, 30-day, 60-day window and say, we're not gonna make any appointment, but you know, you have 60 days, and at that point, we'll review the apps, hopefully find someone that's worthy of appointment, you know, present it and be done, and then we can quit advertising it, so it's not just kind of a blanket apply at all times, because yeah, it can be months between when appointments are made, so that's a long time to hold on to an app, or someone's life might change and suddenly they don't have the availability, so.
Well, I think deadline would be fine. Just whatever whatever comfortable for the mayor and you guys.
Okay.
as far as I'm concerned.
Sounds good to me. Student group or activities donation fund requests.
Again, just a conversation. I know we had, or some of you were involved with the conversation during a work session. As Julie and I went back and kind of discussed, there were differing opinions and not really a clear consensus of whether we need to or not. And again, from a staff perspective, when we get calls requesting to be on the agenda, we've said, well, you can always come to public forum. But it's that aspect, and specifically, we can look at this either larger in terms of anything that the city would classify, as a donation, and make that a formal process. I mean, there's examples. We don't have to necessarily recreate the wheel, but specifically to students, because we just recently got another request, to come that you guys will probably hear in a future meeting, and it's just, again, so we have a consistent thing to know from you all of how do you want us to answer that question? Like, do you want them to come? Or is the city not making donations to student groups?
Well, I think I have, how I remember this is, we made a decision a couple years back to those funds that we were giving to these students and these groups, those were turned towards the community foundation, is that correct? So if they were coming to us for that, now they would be going to the community foundation for those requests rather than seeing us. So that's, I think, with the money that we were bequeathing, so to speak, it's now over here, and those are the people that they need to go see. Is the way I see it.
Did we have some exceptions to that rule, like the after prom thing or
I
anything
think that might be
like
the only one.
Yeah, I mean, after
The only
prom
one I can remember.
had been, one that I guess that we had done, and then, I mean, I think what prompted the conversation is we had, 5 groups after that that also came and
Sure.
wanted, and so that's kind of, I guess ours is grouping, or if you feel that there's a compelling difference between, say, after prom versus FFA or FBLA or
Well, it's,
the
I
choir.
think what we talked about, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, what we talked about is that kind of benefits the entire group, school, or that particular function, where the other ones was kind of a particular group. Is that the impression that you guys?
Yeah, I think, as I recall, James, that whole thing with after prom came as from a recommendation from our police department. Because, we probably all know that things would occur and they run off campus or run to some other town to eat and then come back, and then sometimes they'd come back and sometimes they wouldn't come back.
I don't think it was that sizable,
But
that one.
500.
Yeah, that's,
And I say, none of these have been, I would say,
none of them have been earth shattering.
huge donations.
I think what we were trying to.
But we did grandfather that one in.
We were trying to limit hey, this group comes in and we donate this much, and then this group comes in and we donate that much, and it wasn't equal, and we thought, to be fair, we'd just give it to some that would affect the most students and kind of not narrow it down just to one group. That makes sense? Yes. Yeah, so that's the impression I got. Am I correct on that?
So anyways, that's my impression, is that they need to send those requests over to the community foundation. And I'm happy to keep the after, graduate, what's it called?
Prom.
After prom.
After prom. Yeah, I'm happy to continue doing that here.
Just to do what I do, which is make this more complex.
Yeah.
Again, based upon fairly recent experience, it probably is a work session topic to have a discussion about a number of things. Example, after prom seems like a great idea, doesn't it? Until the private school that happens to be in that community that's thriving and has 300 students comes in and says, we have a prom too. Well, wait a minute, but you're not the public institution in the city, so that's it. And so we want the same thing, or different things like that occur, and you have this dichotomy between different private versus public and a number of things that come into play, and how do you equitably distribute. This is a lot easier where it comes in as a topic of discussion where some citizen from a well-respected and long-standing family in town is involved in a fatal car crash, and they want to do some kind of a memorial, and they come to the city and ask for money there. That's a little more bright line. We really, that's not what we do with public dollars, even though it's a wonderful thing. But some of these others start to blur, and it gets a little bit tougher to determine what do we do for one versus the other. Part of that gets answered by going ahead and turning it over to an endowment association or that sort of thing. But if we keep some of them, you need to be really careful about, okay, can this in some way come back to haunt us with what we do? Having a fairly well-defined policy on this is probably a good idea. And we've talked about it before. I don't know if we've ever fully accomplished that.
I don't have a problem with defining it in a work session. I'm just,
Define an amount,
just
and
define
then
it. and-
put that money with,
Even a framework generally, you know, this is
Taken out
what
of
we
what
do.
I said, the
Because it's really easy for me to do that. Health, safety, welfare is what you guys are about.
Yeah.
That's what you do. So
Well-
if we can, you know,
We may want to define whether or not we even want to do it,
that's another option.
That's why the work session, so this is a topic for
you
our
know,
work
because
session.
there's a large contingency of faith-based people in this community who never benefit from this,
true?
Yep.
and they pay a lot of taxes.
And that was the presentation in the other city.
I understand that, and we had a few people here last time. What are you doing with our money?
Yeah.
I mean, it's our money, what are you doing with it? Well, if that's a legitimate payout, then it's a legitimate payout.
If we're gonna continue it, we need to set an amount, and that's that, and we put it in the hands of the board that's gonna
Okay, well, here,
do.
yeah, but the other thing is that you can't start saying, I choose to participate in this, or I choose to participate in that, and I choose not to participate in this, and I choose not to participate. We can't start picking and choosing where our public dollars go either, based off of your own personal choice. Like, you make that choice, and that is fine, but you don't get to, like, I can't say, well, I'm not using the public library, so I don't support, like, I don't get to start picking and choosing that, and I don't think that's a battle that anybody wants to start getting in the middle of where we're taking, dollars that are governmentally, like, funded things. And I think people gotta be real careful about that too, because my parents are elderly, and there's a lot of things that they don't do right now, but they're still paying taxes too. So I'm just saying, it's a circle of life, folks, and that's what, welcome to government, I guess. I don't know. But there you go. That's
You
my
gotta figure it out.
free speech.
You gotta
So,
figure it out.
Looks like we got a work session coming up, so
And that's, I mean, we just
throwing it there.
wanted to, I guess, manage expectations, or that when a group calls and say, hey, if you want to come present, just to help get more, eyes on your project or your trip or whatever, like, great, the council would love to hear that, just, it's not gonna, translate to monetary, like.
Yeah, there you go.
Looks like we need to set a date for a council work session. Everybody whose calendar is full.
That's dead, and I don't have my phone with me.
So I don't want to borrow mine? Will that help you? Anything scheduled on there for you?
how soon do we need to schedule it?
Preferably, like, late April is actually fairly busy from a staff perspective, so I would say early to, mid-May. Before Memorial Day, can I throw that out there? I know May is crazy for everyone, I mean, in terms of graduations and,
I'd almost say the second, because the next week is Mother's Day weekend.
It has to be on a Saturday.
no, we can do it whenever.
Oh,
Sorry, yeah, any day of the
Sorry, I was
week.
like,
The only day is not the second Monday, because that planning commission has now moved to the second Mondays,
Which is the 11th.
which is the 11th. So that would be the only,
And how many hours are we looking at if we're gonna do it in an evening?
we usually try and hold them to 2
Oh,
at the most, but yeah, it really depends on the discussion.
Yeah, yeah.
what days don't work for you? I forget, Tuesdays?
Tuesdays are my, for sure, teaching days.
Yeah.
So, until
are
the end of May, and
term, yeah.
then I'm done, so.
And then, yeah, we would have council on the 6th and the 20th, so.
Like, Monday, the 11th is a,
That's planning and zoning.
okay, shoot dang.
And we will have a meeting on the 11th, so.
What about the 12th?
Jim can't do
I
Tuesday.
can't do Tuesday. I could do the 13th, but
I could do the 13th.
I may not be able to, maybe.
could we do it, what's the 4th?
Or
Is a Monday.
I will not be here.
Okay.
Sorry.
4th doesn't work?
I just won't be here, but that doesn't mean that it won't work. Or like Thursday, the 7th.
Yeah, I was gonna, how about the 7th?
I'm good with that.
Good,
Here.
I have something during the day, but I'll be back.
it's good for staff, I think.
I know we,
Brad, I mean, if we're gonna talk about the whole group and donation and he has input, Brad, could you be here that day?
7th works.
Okay.
7th.
At,
And what time do we wanna do this?
6?
5 o'clock.
did we need,
I'll bring
this didn't
some-
need to
I'll
happen
make
before
supper.
the next council meeting, right?
No, these are all just general.
Just an FYI, you guys will have a student group here on May 6th. So they're planning to come to request money for FBLA nationals. So just so you're not blindsided by that, they do intend to come that night.
Okay.
So should we try to meet before that, if that's something that needs to be decided?
You could always just tell them that you're going to continue it and not make the decision that night. You could hear their presentation still.
Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah.
That would be good. Thank you.
6 o'clock,
Do you wanna put,
6:30?
subject matter on this right now?
I mean, yeah, if you guys have any specific
Okay,
requests.
so we've got,
Anybody can't make it at 6?
6?
6 on the 7th.
6, okay.
Okay. We got a time.
1,800 hours.
So we've got the donation item on there. You just throw Scout Cabin on there?
Yeah, right now, the tentative topics we had were obviously continued discussion on budget, discussion of city-owned land properties, specifically the lots there on like 11th Street, and then Scout Cabin, or the 3 and now donation would be the 4th item
Okay.
on the agenda, so.
I just was approached about the July 4th being 250 years celebration, and wondered if we maybe wanted to talk about if there was anything we could start thinking about doing for the community in celebration of 250 years. I don't know. I know that was recently brought to my attention if we were planning, and I was like, oh, like,
By a particular group or?
Yeah.
just some people I had just reached out and asked if
Not-
there was
We
anything
had
that
a
was.
club that was gonna take organizing that on?
No,
or-
but I don't know if we want to open that up to the possibility. I mean,
Chamber possibly.
Maybe.
See what's out there?
I mean, I know the city does a few things for the, the pool does some fun things because they're open that day if we want to talk about, I don't know. I guess everybody can kind of brainstorm and talk to some people and see if there's anything special we want to,
Gotta do something.
yeah. I don't know if we want to do a cookout somewhere. I don't know. Something would be kind of community involvement where people are already kind of out and about, but it's a big deal, so.
Yeah.
We can talk about that and everybody can
76.
kind of brainstorm, if they have any thoughts or ideas. I always got thoughts, so.
Just would need a motion, please, to set that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Session
We'll
date.
set the date.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to set our next work session on May 7th at 6 PM.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Everybody's in favor. Drop down to reports, governing body comments. Let's start with Charlie. He's had such interesting stories today.
Yeah. I don't think those are appropriate for mixed company.
Nope,
but
nope, 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 do that.
They don't want to hear about that. I've been trying to, I know Pat does too, but I've been trying to keep up with the water resources people in Kansas. And thankfully Carolyn McGinn is carrying that ball about how we need to handle or what we need to do to handle the greatly depleted aquifer. It's really serious in some parts of the state, and I sent some of you an article from the Kansas City Star about it. It's depressing. It really is depressing. And along with that, part of that story, the guy who wrote it, the couple that wrote it from Kansas City said, you really want to help the aquifer, don't water your lawn. You know, that kind of makes sense. I mean, because you're using that water. However, farming takes up 93% of the water, but that would help also. Another issue that George brought up, and I saw it for myself, was an electric bike on the sidewalk with 3 people on it. And I couldn't stop and take a picture of it. That's scary. And they were driving faster than I was, going down the street. And this was coming down Main Street too, so I don't know. We can ignore it, we can regulate it, or we can ban it. But I think we need to do something.
We're kind of waiting on North Newton to land on that subject. Because they're doing all the legwork for us. And,
I don't live in North Newton.
well, we can take,
Daughter does.
we'll take what they find out,
Yeah,
and then we can run with that. But how do you, you know,
but their mortalities may be completely different than ours.
well, the
Heaven help us, we
big
don't
thing
want
is the
any.
classification of the
Yeah,
bikes.
okay, I
You
understand
know, our
that.
deputies have got to have clear, how do you identify this thing for what speed it's traveling?
Well, it's kind of like golf
Or
carts, so, you know, and there's supposed to be a maximum a golf
Yeah.
cart can go.
Yeah.
And I understand that. That's the type of
Yeah,
regulation
there's
you're looking
several
at.
categories of bikes you can buy. Man, some of them, I think they can run 50, 60 mile an hour.
And because our streets are nice, they do.
I've seen
Oh,
it
that's
in
fascinating, yeah.
one-wheel things can really scoot.
Used to see a kid every morning when I got ready to pull out on Halstead Road, he'd come by, standing on that thing, and 2 little bitty lights at the bottom.
know.
It was dark.
I admire him just for staying on it.
Well, I couldn't do it, but
There's an elderly gentleman that rides home by my house.
that fast?
Not that fast,
Oh.
but he's moving.
Okay, I pass.
You passed. I just want to, the sidewalks in the town are really coming along well and looking lovely, and so thank you for that. I know, we've contracted out the work for that, but, I know that it causes some distress for some people when your driveways are torn up temporarily and different things like that. But they do look really nice, and they are going to make walking and running and around town much safer. So be patient with that, but they are coming along quite nicely with that, so I appreciate that. And in regards to that, just continue to be mindful as you're traveling to and from down those roads with construction, because especially in the morning, it can get to be a little bit with, tricky with bikes and walkers and people trying to get to work. And so allow yourself a little extra time, but they do look really nice, so thank you for that. And yeah, with the warmer weather comes people on bikes and all, and little kids in the streets and things like that. So just take a time to do a double take when you're entering the streets, because I know my neighborhood is busy with children of all sizes in and out of the streets. And I love that. I just don't want anyone to get run over by a bike or a car. So be mindful of the pedestrians as the weather starts to get nicer and things like that. So baseball and softball are home this Friday. So if you want to come take in some ball games on the what people are saying are some of the most beautiful fields in the state, I can't disagree. There's not a better sight than sitting in the baseball field with the water tower in the background as the sun's starting to set. Like, it's pretty beautiful. And it's always good when the Dragons are winning, but good time. Come out, cheer on the Dragons, take in the beautiful game. So that's it.
I have this topic comes to me every once in a while, and I experience it firsthand every day. And I'm not going to look at Josh over there, but this kind of involves his department a little bit. I had another neighbor of mine come over and say, "Can we do anything about the Jake breaks?" And I know it's a challenge. Trust me on this. But
Take break right up to the sign, which will have jurisdiction.
Jake breaks
I
on
know.
trucks.
Right across town.
But since it was not just, I'm used to it, and it's kind of like a train. After a while, you sort of don't hear it, but you still hear it. But one of my neighbors that lives on the same road come up and asked me about it. So I am formally asking, and maybe we could take a look at that a little bit. If there's a sign out there, and not everybody, and like Josh says, a lot of times they'll quit using it by the time they hit the sign. Not all of them. And it has picked up dramatically. This time of year, it always picks up dramatically. So, just because of the frequency of the travel up and down that road. So, if we could kind of maybe look into that, I would appreciate it. So,
Well, you sort of feel like this is the way it is, but it isn't. Because
correct.
if that truck was factory stock, you would not hear that.
Yeah.
And a lot of your one-ton dually diesel pickups, you don't hear them making that noise when they step on the brake, and they have an exhaust brake on them.
Well, they're not
So
using
these
the brake.
guys have taken the factory exhaust off and put a straight pipe on their truck.
Yeah.
And now it's just really quite obnoxious at my corner.
The ones that,
And,
the ones are quite obvious.
I was told the fine is pretty hefty if they were actually caught.
Roger's house blocks my house from the vibration.
I was gonna say, I hear it clear,
yeah.
so.
And they,
You
they
can
do, they
imagine
do it
what I
past
hear.
Jim's,
Yeah.
and then when they get to Second Street, they do it all again.
It makes me wonder, it's a volume thing. So just like you've got your signs that are radars that, let you know you're speeding, here's your speed. Is there a way that all of a sudden, do they make something where it's like a sound gets a certain volume and they're like, you're using your Jake brake and, it warns them, we hear you, that type of thing.
It'd be a decibel thing. Yeah.
Right, it seems like that should be an easy enough thing to make, but you'd think somebody's got that out there.
Until that becomes a challenge to do more of it. want it to get to hundred and 20.
Set a
Like
new
what
record.
concert.
Yeah, don't put numbers on it. They'll be
Yeah,
trying to set a
you don't
record.
put numbers on it. You just, you're, we hear you type of thing, yeah.
Well, we got everybody here. Josh is over there making notes of what he needs to do. Do we have the capability on our website to take a survey?
Oh, I don't think so.
That would have been such an easy out.
Yeah.
You can put one out on Facebook for those that use Facebook.
We could, but I don't know. Facebook is not very reliable in my experience when it comes to surveys.
Yeah.
You get a lot of people taking your survey that don't live here.
That's
You
it.
get
Oh,
fake
man.
profiles. You get, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just not reliable to
The
me.
golf cart thing was going on, there were over 500 people on there that wanted golf carts.
But
Most of them didn't live in town.
I know
Didn't exist.
at one point when we did kind of a survey that we sent out on, you know, how people found out city business, we used SurveyMonkey. I mean, and it
Yeah.
was not terrible to do, but again, you get skewed results because you can't control who's taking it and who's doing
Say,
it.
once we hyperlink it, I mean, anyone with an internet connection, there's no good way, and you potentially, I mean, if you ask them to give, you know, something like a street address, not even necessarily a name, then, you know, you're potentially skewing results in terms of someone thinking, you know, now it's not anonymous, if you were hoping it to be anonymous, or things of that. So online surveying is very hard.
Even comments are.
Yeah.
I'm gonna use the benches at the Scout Park. I recognized about 4 names on all the people that commented.
I
and
got a
didn't
few
rec-
more than that, but
And I surely didn't recognize several of them. I couldn't even imagine who they are, so.
And we like
I say
engagement.
that.
I mean, it helps the algorithms,
Yeah.
in terms of our posts, like being more visible, but yeah, in terms of if you're looking for actionable items, I would say there's better ways to do surveys. It's just most of those are probably gonna have some sort of, you know,
I'll just
cost.
throw this out to the council. And I myself don't have a problem with it, but then I've always been at work when school got out. So I've never seen the traffic leaving the school. But I'm told our better streets that are going away from the school, the traffic is just a little faster than is it all tolerable. And I've heard from, believe it or not, more than one person to maybe change our speed limits in the residential streets, not North Street, Second Street, Sixth Street, McNair, but the other streets where there's houses down to 20 mile an hour, maybe 25. If we didn't want to drop down that far, but,
There's a cost associated with that.
oh yeah. And that would be the other thing, how would you handle it? Signs on the incoming streets that all residential
Yeah,
streets are?
Back when we had the 2019 and 2020 safe routes to schools, when and if they put in the sidewalks on that street becomes a 20. The others don't, but the ones where they do the work, because we're trying to encourage people to use those areas. And so instead of coming up Chestnut at 20, you go over coming from the south, go to Main Street and come on up by George's house at 30. He'll love that. He doesn't love it, but I mean, that would be a
The
possibility.
Chestnut will be changed to a 20 mile an
Chestnut
hour
would be a
street.
20, because it's a safe route to school.
Is that the only one that's affected by that?
No,
No? So we've got other streets that are gonna be
parts of those streets would,
part of it?
yeah. Yeah, there's other feeders that come down to Sixth Street, basically what it amounts to.
I guess the main thing I'm looking for is how does everybody feel about that?
Sedgwick is all 20,
Is it?
yeah.
Because, you know, myself, when I drive the east-west streets, I just can't imagine trying to run 30 mile an hour with the dips and the blind corners and,
6.
opinion on this subject is there's a lot to unpack on this one, and I think maybe another work session topic.
Okay?
Yeah, I mean,
Maybe we could rob the police chiefs here for a couple of minutes,
Yes.
and he doesn't have to stay for the whole thing unless he wants to bring us food, but. But no, I think we need to add this as another, there's too much here to try to figure out right now.
well, it'd be good with Brad there, cause, there's conflicting views on how, conspicuous and how often signage has to be posted. Because obviously, once you go to 20, you're interfering with what we all learned in a book, which is
30
unless
mile an hour
otherwise
residential,
posted.
yep.
But, I've also heard the argument that, you know, thinking you can just put a sign at your city limits that says, hey, everything's 20 miles an hour, enjoy, is not good enough.
Not
Like,
gonna
you're
work.
literally talking speed limits on,
It can be fairly expensive too by the time you
yeah, I mean, you can do it. It's
replace
definitely something we can do,
signs.
if that's where we wanna go.
I think if you wanted to send out a survey to the residents, I think probably sending out something with our utility billing would be the way to do it. Because then you're only hitting the people that live here in Halstead.
Yeah.
And it could go out, you know, we could put a form in there that just basically says, would you be in favor of changing the speed limits to 20 miles per hour? That simple, and they mark yes or no. It could be anonymous, send it back in.
Yeah, I
Drop it
like
in
that
the-
idea.
Yeah. And we
They could
can,
sit,
Dropbox
turn it in with
or
their utility
whatever.
bills or
Yeah.
email it in.
we can have it on the counter, I mean, for people that come in and just have staff remind them of like, hey, have you answered this survey question yet? And
Yeah.
try and get as many people that way.
Good, good.
That's good ideas. And I have a proclamation. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday is called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our city increase property value, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas trees are a source of joy, spiritual renewal, and whereas Halstead has been recognized as a Tree City USA by the National Arbor Day Foundation and desires to continue its tree planting ways. And now therefore I, Gary Felber, Mayor of the City of Halstead, do proclaim April 15th, 2026 as Arbor Day. In the City of Halstead, and I urge all citizens to support the effort to care for our trees and woodlands and to support our city's community forestry program. Further, I urge citizens to plant trees to guide our hearts and promote the well-being of present and future generations. This date, April 2026.
I like that, Gary. Except your insurance company's gonna tell you if your tree's within 15, 16 feet of your house, your deductible's going up to $5,000.
That last windstorm we had, I was lucky and the adjuster didn't show up till we had already kind of bulldozered things around and well, what got hit? Well, they landed, every one of them landed on my fence. So they paid for
Take down
trees.
5 trees, so they
Got
okay,
15 of them that year.
great.
Next.
I can't think of anything.
Alrighty.
I'm kinda in shock.
I do have something here, I'll share afterward. Ethan, I looked on my email, sending you that email, and I did see that 2 of them went to you, the elevations and the floor plan.
Okay.
But, because I looked at my sent and I saw that they had gone, whether it was one just showed up later or something, if you could, I think it'd be nice if you find them, just at some point forward them, to the rest of the group.
Yeah.
But I've got a floor plan here, a preliminary floor plan and elevations of Scout Cabin. And it's just a place to start. It can absolutely grow, diminish, whatever, but if you wanna look at it before we get out of here, it's just a place to start. And this will be on the work session, so that's all I have.
For those of you that haven't heard, we are looking for ideas to improve Scout Park's Scout Camp, or Scout Cabin. It's in great need of repair and updating. So if anybody has an opinion on that, well, let us know. Roger?
Alrighty, couple quick notes. I noticed both our president and our governor are trying to eliminate property taxes. I'm just curious, what do we do if we have no property taxes? Are we gonna have to put toll booths on the bridge? Like,
Both bridges.
like, really, what do we do?
That's the big question.
Cause I see like Florida's looking to move and do that, but they're gonna tax all the tourists. We can't do that. Like, I know that this is a big issue and that people love the idea of not paying property taxes, but it's like, I just don't know how a city can function without property taxes.
Well, that's just the point. If citizens say, okay, yeah, I don't wanna pay property taxes, well, you're not gonna have fire department, you're not gonna have water service, you're not gonna have. And unless we wanna get together and pony up, in spite of there being no requirement for property taxes, you just don't get anything.
Yeah.
So it's just gonna be up to the individuals.
It
how
kinda
you-
scares me that both the president and the governor are both shooting for this. It's almost the easy, vote for me because I'm gonna get rid of your taxes. Well, that's great. That doesn't help the state or the feds. That helps the city. And I don't know, it concerns me greatly.
'Cause what happened this session, I can guarantee you, next year, it's gonna get worked on a lot harder. Cause they were that close to doing something.
Yeah.
And then Ethan's job is gonna get tough with the budgeting.
It's toughened up already.
There's an awful lot of frosting on the cake that we're gonna have to do without.
Yeah, so I don't know, I just encourage people, I guess, pay attention to this, cause it's nationwide, and I'm sure there's gonna be communities coming up with creative things, but like I said, we don't have tourism, we don't have some group that we can tax the tar out of just to get our money. Another thing, completely changing the channel. Halstead Road has signs that say 1 lane. I'm assuming that's talking about the construction on Sixth Street, right? That it says construction.
Yeah.
I find that incredibly confusing, and I think folks are just like preparing themselves for 1 lane and it never happens, and
That intersection and then you're past it.
I just question if that's the right sign or the right place to put it. I just find it super confusing. And then I'm just gonna reiterate again, I didn't sleep well at the last meeting. I really wish we could revisit Sixth Street and the bike lanes, and especially considering the electric bikes. I have such a bad feeling we're gonna have some kid just screaming down that bike lane, and a high schooler is gonna turn in front of them and T-bone them or run them down. It makes me so nervous. I know that bike lanes are one of those things that everybody loves, and
most of the time they're super safe, but I really question on Sixth Street. So I just wanted to say that again. Other than that, I'm done.
Okay. For our city manager.
A lot of activity, at least on my end, has been dealing, and going with the Safe Routes project, which is well underway. They've only encountered, I think, about 2 days of actual weather delay. So they're still trying to carry on as fast as weather permits and what they can get with demo. Thankfully, no major hiccups or the largest issue as far as excavation and deconstruction of the existing sidewalk was actually a stormwater inlet box. So we're working to work through that small snag, but overall the project is advancing pretty much on schedule, and we're excited there. Good to, again, work behind the scenes on trying to get the grant agreements in front of you all to get these other pending projects moving forward. So that's largely where staff time's been spent. And then we have a lot of reporting for the final, like our CARES Act money that came back from the COVID pandemic and all that. We have our final reporting due on how those funds were expended over that time. So be working on those federal reports and getting that in by the end of the month. And then I will email you all the monthly activity that will have more of the department activity to you all. So just check your council emails for that. And that's all I have, unless there's any real questions this evening as far as on the manager side of things. And for the financial report, you had the treasurer's report and whatnot in the packet, and then the handout here this evening. City accounts have been reconciled between the clerk's office and the city treasurer for the first quarter. Again, hopefully you guys had a chance to review that. Overall, for the first quarter, the city of Halstead saw an increase in total balances in a majority of our funds. This is not uncommon for the first quarter of any fiscal year, as several larger revenues are received early in the year, such as our ad valorem or property tax revenues from Harvey County. And we have increased revenues in utility funds, specifically gas, due to the colder weather. So revenues always look pretty good for us at the beginning of the fiscal year. Receipts and interfund transfers totaled just over $3.15 million in the first quarter, while expenditures and interfund transfers out totaled just under $2.25 million, which overall saw balances improve in the quarter for the entire city by around $900,000. City did end the first quarter with just under $6.45 million in total cash and investments, while total liabilities and obligations totaled just over $4.5 million. Comparing the previous year to our current year, as far as month to month, at the end of March, we still see an unfavorable cash position in the general fund compared to the previous year, continuing that multi-month trend. I will also point out, though, the water fund shows a large unfavorable balance to last year, but this was due to intentional transfers we did at the end of last fiscal year from the water fund. The gas fund continues to hover at about the same cash balance from the previous year, which is an improvement from its longtime trend of being unfavorable year to year. Across budgeted funds, the city's total cash balance is down just over $250,000, the majority of that due to the general fund. Expenses across all funds are favorable to expectations at the end of the third quarter, with the only fund showing a high expense ratio being special liability, which is completely normal and anticipated, as that fund helps pay a portion of our liability and property insurance, which that's always billed in full at the beginning of the year. Departments within the general fund are all within or favorable to their anticipated expenditures at the end of the first quarter. The only exception there being the administration department, which again sees its higher expenses because it pays the remaining balance on the property and liability insurance that doesn't come out of special liability. So that's always a large upfront expense in that department. Utility funds are well within expectations for the first quarter in terms of performance, and no real negative trends have been noted. Staff are holding off on budgeted transfers from the gas fund as we continue to monitor that fund's performance, but other budgeted transfers are being made as scheduled. We are still making the accelerated utility loan payments from the gas fund as well. No real major changes to note on our capital funds. Changes in balances have all been anticipated in terms of approved capital projects, such as the street ceiling project or planned equipment purchases. The city equipment fund ended the first quarter just under 1 million, and the capital improvement fund currently has a balance of just under 1.18 million. And that does reflect after we paid for the street project, or the street maintenance project this year. And then utility reserves have also seen increased balances and have no major expenses to report from those funds for the quarter. So that is kind of a 30,000-foot view of where we're at. I'm glad to answer any questions.
We need a motion to adjourn then.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Thank you for your work on that.